Hey everyone, and welcome to the tutorial series for the NPC Manager system. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the standard tasks and how to use specific locations in your level. So, what is a standard task? A standard task is a form of a generic task similar to the POI, which we looked at in the last video, but they're very standardized, so there's no reason for you to do any additional setup. So a standard task can be something as simple as find nearby bounds and go roaming in it, or find nearby waypoints, or find the nearby path, or even go home. In addition, you can have a specific location in your level and you can tell the NPC to actually go to that location for a certain amount of time. So if we go back to Unreal, this is exactly where we left off. The only thing I did is I deleted all of the additional stations that we had here that we're no longer using to kind of clear out the clutter, but it's exactly where we left off. If I go ahead and click play, you'll notice that our NPC spawns, it's going to our station, it presses the button, it activates this blueprint via the regular interface, and then it just roams around for the additional 20 some seconds. Notice that the NPC is not coming to the station because this is a one-time use, so it is no longer available to the NPC. So we've already talked long enough about the point of interest. Now we'll be taking a look at all of the additional things that we have in our level. And these are all referenced to the standard tasks. So if you're wondering where I got these blueprints, you can go to NPC Manager, Blueprints, Navigation. And you can see that we have the actor location here, the bounding box, the path, and the individual waypoints here. So the first thing we want to do is we want to modify our profile to have the NPC start in the point of interest, but then when it's done, instead of remaining here, we want him to go out and use all the other navigation stuff. So go ahead and open your profile. And here we only have one task, which is obviously to go to the POI tutorial and kind of chill for about 30 seconds. So we want to add an additional task and we'll click on the plus sign here. But this time, instead of using POI, we'll click on use standard task. And in this case, we don't want to select go home. We want to select roam within bounds. And that's it. It's as simple as that. We don't care about the time because we're not going to wait for him to repeat it. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and make this time shorter. Let's make it 15 seconds to 20 seconds. That way we're not waiting for too long. We don't want to be just kind of hanging around here while the NPC does what it does. So let's go ahead and click on play. And we're walking around and we catch the NPC doing his thing. And he's now roaming. Notice that the task time is 5 more seconds. When the task time finishes, it'll go to the next task, which is index 1. And it just did it. And now it's going to leave the POI through the entrance, the only entrance that we have. And it's going to the nearby bounds, which is this area right here. And notice that the timer doesn't start until he actually arrives at the location. Once he does, notice that Brandon now has 257 seconds left in this task, which is going to be roaming around in this volume. Obviously, that's too long. We're not going to wait. But the point is, notice how easy it was to add an additional task. You can have a bunch of these bounding boxes in your level, anywhere you want the NPCs to freely roam, and by simply using this standard task, not this one here, the NPC will find a nearby bounds and just go there for the duration of the task. And once it's done, you can have him do something else, or perhaps follow a path, or follow or go to the nearby waypoints or whatever. And you can keep cycling through your tasks that way. So that's literally it. Notice that I do want to point out that the bounds have an ID, and in this case it's empty. And if I go back to my profile, notice that we have a list here that says bounds/path ID list. And this is used to specify which bounds the NPCs are allowed to use. So you may have 3 or 4 bounds in your level, but maybe each one has a different ID. And then via the profile, you can tell the NPCs which bounds they're allowed to use. So if the NPC traces and finds 3 bounds, only the bounds that match their IDs will be considered. Now, if you add no IDs, like in this case, in the profile, there are 0 IDs in this list, you're basically telling the NPC that he can use any bounds or path that it finds. No restriction. Okay? Let's go ahead and change this from nearby bounds to nearby waypoints. And the waypoints are this little points here that you'll find right here. See that? These are the waypoints. So now, if we click on play, we'll again have the NPC do its thing. And now once it is finished, which is in about 5 more seconds, the NPC will then trace and try to find nearby waypoints, and it'll just select a nearby waypoint. And in this case, I should have made invisible. I had, I believe, 5 in this area here. So the NPC will choose one waypoint, and once it arrives, then the counter starts for that task. All right, so here was one. And then after that, it's going to go to another waypoint. I think it was the shape here. And it'll basically continue doing that randomly until the task time is done. And you can see that they were visible here. Let's make them visible. It's a little bit easier that way. And you can say marker visible, marker hidden. And that way they're visible when we hit play. So you can see right there. All right, the next one is we're going to use a path. And I want to take just a moment to explain how to use the path. This is very similar to the animal behavior kit, but in case you don't have it, I want to make sure that I show you how to do it. So if you navigate to Blueprints, Navigation, notice that there's a BP called BP NPC Path. Go ahead and drag it to your level. And if you zoom in here a little bit, you'll notice that there is a spline, purple spline here. So let's go ahead and move this actor here and rotate it 90 degrees. And if we zoom in here and we select the actual spline point, notice that now I actually am moving the actual spline point, not the actor. And what I can do is I can use the arrows here to drag the spline point. And then if I press Alt and drag, I duplicate the spline point. And by doing that, I can create many points in the level. So Alt, drag, Alt, drag, Alt, drag. Now we have different points. And what I can do now is I can select any point and move them along the curve. And you can see that we are now creating a little path for the NPCs to follow. And we can actually select the actor itself and raise it a little bit above the ground, makes it a little bit easier to see. And we can then place our waypoints that are going to mark the actual waypoint paths that you see here. So if we click here on Place Waypoints, notice that we have now placed waypoints, the exact same waypoints that we have here, but they're now following the path, one waypoint per spline point. The difference is here that this path remembers these waypoints and the sequence, and when the NPC comes here, it'll follow the path by following these waypoints in sequence. That's basically it. So let's go ahead and delete our waypoints, and we can just delete this guy here. We already have this a little bit nicer set up. So the same thing here, let's go ahead and drop our waypoints, place our waypoints. And that's pretty much it. Oh, one last thing before we hit play is there is an option here, not only for a path ID, but also there's an option that says path is looped. So if you deselect this, the path will not loop on itself. So the NPCs will follow the path, and when they get to the end, they'll go back and retrace their steps. If you select looped, notice how when I get here, automatically the spline joins the last point with the first point. Notice that? And if that is the case, then the NPCs will not retrace their steps, but they'll go back to the beginning. So if it's looped, the NPCs will simply go around and around and around. If it's not looped, they would go like this, back and forth, back and forth. There's an additional option, and this is true for any waypoint, is that there is an option called the use only for path. So right now, because this path has regular waypoints, any NPC that is using waypoints can actually use these waypoints as well. But if you want to reserve them only for this path, then you have to select the appropriate option here. Okay? All right, enough talking. Let's go back to the profile and select follow nearby path. Compile and save. And the same thing for all of these waypoints, we want them visible. So I'm going to select all of them and deselect hidden. That way we can actually see what's going on. See, we can now see them. And we have the NPC, yet again, press the button. Roam around for 5 more seconds, I guess. And then he's going to exit and start the path. And the path starts here. Remember, this is the first spline point. So the NPC will come here. Then he'll sequentially follow this path in order. So again, you could have, if you have a really big level, you can have many different paths that go and loop around the mountains, go in many different ways. You can split them up. And then you can have the NPCs use a standard task, and wherever they are in the world, they will find the nearest path and they'll go ahead and follow it. That means that you could have a bunch of different paths, a bunch of different volumes, and a bunch of different waypoints in your map. Then you can place NPCs in different parts of the map, simulate, and the NPCs will naturally follow pathways through the mountains, or they'll go to specific key areas where you want the players to always look for NPCs, or they'll just roam around a specific wooded area, for example, or a marketplace or whatever. All of these are super simple to set up, and they're all based on the standard task. All right, we're not gonna wait for him to go. It's gonna take forever, but just trust me, he'll go all the way there. If you want to pause the video and make sure it does, keep watching and you'll see that because it is looped, he'll just continue and continue and continue. All right, the last one we'll see for the standard task is go home. And go home is basically go to the home base POI. So if you guys recall, when we're looking at the settings here, there's one setting called home base. And if this is empty, then the standard task will not work. So you have to specify a point of interest as a home. In this case, we say that the home is this POI, which is tutorial. So let's do something a little different. We're going to go ahead and delete all our tasks and create a new one. And this one actually will start by going to nearby bounds. And we'll make this 20 seconds. We don't want to wait too long. Actually, let's make it even less. Between 10 to 12 seconds. Again, no reason to waste time. And the second one, instead of using POI, we want to use go home. So standard task, go home. And it doesn't really matter the timing here because we're not going to wait for it. Notice that we could have also said POI and explicitly put the home POI, but this is just a convenient way for you to have the same task in a profile, and each NPC will go to their respective homes. So you can share the same profile with many NPCs, but if you use the standard task, each NPC will go to the respective homes, and that's better than you having to have some kind of logic here to tell them to which POI they need to go. So all right, and another thing is To keep in mind, any NPC that is spawned by a POI will automatically start in that POI. And that's an optimization that is done by design. So in this case, we don't want to spawn the NPC here because it will not go here. It'll immediately try to hang around in this POI. So what we'll do here is we'll make this 0. In other words, don't spawn anything. And we're going to manually drag our NPC tutorial to the level and put it real close to the bounds because, again, we don't want to waste time for him to walk all the way there. Okay? Go ahead and click on save. And if we click play now, notice that the NPC is going to the bounds. And once he reaches his initial destination, which I guess is this corner, it'll hang out for 10 seconds. And then the next task is going to be go home. There you go. And then it's going home, and home just happens to be this POI here. So this is the exact same thing that we've seen before. The NPC will go home, and as soon as he gets home, it'll request a station. The only station available is press button, right? Because we didn't use it before. It'll go ahead and execute that, and then it'll just hang around. And you can see we have 280 seconds. And it'll just do what it needs to do here. All right. Very simple. Okay. And the last thing we want to use is the location. So you'll notice that we have these little columns here. And these are dummy actors. I put them under the navigation as location actor, but there's nothing here. All this is basically a little cylinder just to mark the location. And if I click play, notice that they're not even visible here. I had them invisible. So let's make them visible just for our sake. And under setup, deselect hidden. That way they're going to remain there. And what we're going to do is we are going to add these locations to our profile. So here under profile, again, let's go ahead and delete all of our tasks to save some time. Press plus. And instead of using POI, we're not going to use a POI. We're not going to use a standard task. We're going to use location. And in that case, we are going to now have to specify the location here on this array. It says location. So we press the plus sign 3 times because we have 3 different locations. And we're actually going to copy the location for each individual actor. And the way we do that is we select the first one here, come to location, right click, copy. Then we go to our profile. And right here, we select paste. And we have the actual location in the world right here. And we'll do the same thing for the other one really quickly. Copy, paste, copy, and paste. And this is the exact same thing where every time you see a list, you'll see the same theme. Because we have more than one location for this task, it'll actually select a random location from the list. In this case, let's make the task only 10 seconds. And what's going to happen is that it'll execute this task. It'll pick a random location. It'll travel to the location. It'll wait 10 seconds. It'll end the task. And because we're sequential, it'll again run the task, which will then pick another location randomly, and it'll go there. So this is perhaps the simplest setup if you want your NPCs to roam around your world. The simplest setup. You don't have to do any specific blueprints. Oops. Sometimes you saw what happened there. Sometimes the navigation kind of trips up a little bit. So that's something that we need to be considerate when we have a lot of different objects in our level. But notice that Scott arrived at his location, waited for 10 seconds, and now the timer finishes. And now he picks a different location, which I guess is this one. So you can see it's coming straight here. And as soon as Scott gets here, notice that again, he's going to wait another 10 seconds. And when it finishes, the profile will restart and he'll pick another location. So obviously this is super obvious here because they're right here. But the point is, you can add as many locations as you want, and the NPCs will roam around the map. This is just an added bonus, honestly. I would probably recommend using something like the waypoints. But if you want very specific locations, like an NPC that is roaming between two different towns, or maybe this is a rare NPC that only appears on this very specific location in the middle of the forest or whatever, then you can use this and place these things in very specific places. And then you'll have the NPC just roam there. Okay? That is pretty much it, guys. So in this video, we covered all of the different standard tasks, including go home, and we looked at how to use the location. All right, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me directly here or join our Discord. We have an amazing active community. I'm pretty active there. You can come into the Discord, DM me with questions, or just participate and even show off your projects in the channel. So thank you guys so much, and I'll talk to you in the next video.